Hello, everyone. I'm Graham Ledger, and welcome to the Daily Ledger. Our cover story, the Obama tactical meltdown over a nuclear Iran. Team Obama appears to be caving in its effort to win a deal, any deal, with Iran. U.S. negotiators, led by Secretary of State John Kerry, have reportedly backed down on demands that Iran disclose its full range of nuclear activities. Now, this is a crucial component to the negotiations. Iran must fully disclose from the start. Otherwise, any deal is worthless. That's because the Iranian nuclear capability could never be accurately measured. But Team Obama doesn't care. It simply wants a deal. Obama wants his place in history.
I think there probably will be a lot of reports over the next week that claim to address some specifics about what's going on in the negotiating room. We've been clear all along that we're not going to negotiate in public. And we're also not going to comment on specific reports about specific details that purportedly are coming up in the talks. Our bottom lines remain the same, that we want to come to a framework that cuts off all of Iran's pathways to a nuclear weapon. We're working toward a deal. I'm not going to put a specific date on it. Clearly our goal is to achieve it by the end of this month, but I'm not going to refine that.
Are you optimistic?
Any further?
Can you use the word optimistic?
No, I'm not going to apply a label.
Now, in the Senate, there is legislation that would give Congress a say on any nuclear deal with Iran, and Senator Lindsey Graham says it should pass by a veto-proof margin.
Within 5 days of a deal being announced, it has to come to the Congress, and within 60 days, we'll have hearings, debate, and a vote. And we'll have to get 60 votes to disapprove the agreement. And the reason Bob and I agreed to do it that way is it requires 6 Democrats to join with the Republican Party if all of us voted against the deal before you could disapprove.
Now, there are reports that Obama will allow Iran to continue running hundreds of nuclear centrifuges at an underground bunker fortified from attack. But of course, it's for peaceful purposes only. The Ayatollah, Mr. Death to America and Israel himself, can be trusted, right? Meantime, another stunning move by this White House, the release of what had been top-secret documents exposing the nuclear capability of Israel. So how damaging to Israel is the flagrant and punishing move by Obama? Joining me now from Washington, D.C., investigative reporter at the Washington Examiner, Sarah Westwood. Sarah, a couple things here. First of all, Israel has never admitted that it has nuclear weapons, but that's done for a reason, a purpose, national security purposes among them. And the United States, heretofore, had never admitted that Israel has nuclear capability, that is, nuclear weapons either. And that was a pledge to Israel to guard their national security. But as of this week, I guess, or last month, whenever these were released, no more.
Exactly. What you're referring to was known as nuclear ambiguity. It's kind of an unspoken secret in the international community that Israel has nuclear weapons, but they've long held that they will not be the first country to introduce nuclear weapons into the Middle East. And so they've always remained silent on their nuclear arsenal, and we have as well, because it's important that we don't touch off a nuclear arms race in the Middle East. That's really at the heart of the argument against Iran getting nuclear weapons. But in response to a Freedom of Information Act request from an openly anti-Israel research group, the Obama administration released these documents from the 1980s that just give stunning details about Israel's progression towards nuclear capability in the 70s and 80s. It, described most notably that they were gaining the ability to build a hydrogen bomb, which is massively more powerful than an atomic bomb. It talks about the capabilities of their nuclear infrastructure, their laboratories, just details that had never been acknowledged in American official documents. It's an unprecedented acknowledgement of their nuclear capabilities, and some people are saying the timing of the release is suspect and kind of almost a slap in the face to Prime Minister Netanyahu, because it was released during his elections, and it was released when he was on his way to Congress to talk about specifically not allowing nuclear weapons to enter his region.
That's right. I'll say it. It is payback for Benjamin Netanyahu from Barack Obama. This was timed right after he declared and accepted that he would speak before Congress. And, of course, we know the White House went into a tizzy about that. But you mentioned it goes into grave detail. It also redacts, from what I understand. The report is redacted for other countries because this is not just singular Israeli nuclear capabilities. This is nuclear capabilities among certain allies, certain NATO allies, including France, including Italy, including Germany. And this is a document that dates back to, I believe, 1987. It's a curious thing, isn't it, that the information about Israel and its nuclear capability is not redacted, but the information about Italy and France and Germany's nuclear capability and other NATO countries' capability fully redacted.
Right. In the name of fairness, the group who requested this told me that they actually negotiated just the release of the Israeli information, not the release of any of the other NATO countries, because otherwise, they might have to wait even longer to get these documents because that information would have had to have been reviewed for redactions as well. But it's still suspect that, the nuclear capabilities of our NATO allies were, thought to be enough of national security implications to be redacted, but Israel wasn't. It's also suspect that these documents were the subject of a FOIA lawsuit. This request had been ignored for 3 years with no indication that the Pentagon was going to give in and produce the documents as they're required to by law. And then all of a sudden, in response to this lawsuit, they do. And they could have easily withheld this report under the Freedom of Information Act, ostensibly, as they do many documents, and, would have been completely within their right. So it's very surprising. The timing, like you said, the content, it really raises a lot of questions.
Yeah, and let's face it, this is the least transparent administration in the history of this country, even though it claims to be the most transparent. It's ignoring FOIA requests. From day one, they've got FOIA requests piled up at the White House so high they can't see out the windows, and at the State Department, and at the IRS, and at the Department of Justice. I mean, come on, this is a joke. They use this FOIA request to strike back, philosophically at least, at Israel, but it compromises Israel's safety. I mean, that is the bottom line here, and this is a despicable act from my opinion, what is clearly an administration and a president who appear to be anti-Semitic.
It definitely seems like retribution, but another point, Graham, is that the release of this documents at this time really plays into the negotiations about Iran nuclear weapons, because proponents of a nuclear Iran can come out and say, look, Israel is allowed to pursue its nuclear ambitions, so what is different about having Iran pursue its nuclear ambitions? Now, obviously, there are two totally different regimes in place, a lot more geopolitics involved than just that, but you can distill the logic that simply, and people will latch on to that argument. So for right now, stripping away nuclear ambiguity in the Middle East, something that's been in place for decades, and for the first time in history to acknowledge that we know about Israel nuclear weapons while we're trying to negotiate with Iran in a very high-stakes deal, it's irresponsible of the White House almost, some people are saying, to do this now.
You hit the nail on the head. For Team Obama, this creates some sort of moral equivalence. This is a pretext to what's going to happen with the, quote, deal with Iran. And it's going to make some sort of excuse for the Obama administration for these people in Iran to continue to produce nuclear capacity in their country and eventually probably get a nuclear bomb. Sarah, thanks.